Go.
Okay, so here is the pharynx of the worm that looks like a dark circle, and we're going to be measuring to one side of that and to the other side of that, and I'm going to show you that in a second. I also want to show you when you go here to analyze, wait a minute here, process, analyze, set measurements. Under analysis, set measurements, you can click what you want to measure. We don't want area right now, we don't want mean values, we just want by the minimum and maximum values. So I just click what I want, and I'm leaving that. Oh, sorry, and the decimal places, I don't need any decimal places for this, so just do that. Now if you go back to the image, you have areas of interest that you can pick. You can click on this thing and select different kinds. You know, if you right click, optical, elliptical, or something else, I usually just use the elliptical one, and I click a little circle that I can then click inside and drag to one side of the animal. That way I can click here on the keyboard the letter M, and it will throw a measurement for that particular circle, and it gives me the minimum and the maximum brightness for that image. Okay, now you can click on the advanced to go one frame ahead. You can click on this arrow here, or you can click on the back arrow to go back all the way to the beginning. And so I advance to the next frame, and I will reposition this thing, and I will press M again to get the next value. I advance to the next frame, reposition, M, advance to the next frame, reposition, press M, and so on. You're advancing, making sure that you are on the side. As the worm keeps moving, you're gonna have to reposition that circle to still measure the same muscle, okay? Which is the reason why we're going with the pharynx, because it provides a very obvious landmine when you're recording this, okay? So you can see the numbers kind of dropping here. We are 10 frames in. I'm gonna drop there, and then you can go here, edit, copy, and typically we have an Excel sheet. Where we're gonna paste that information. Also, if you look up here, you see what frame you are. We're in frame 10 out of 100. Remember, this is in 30 frames per second. So in theory, we basically just filmed or analyzed a third of a second. And so I just have the frames here, 1 to 10, the minimum and the maximum. I'm gonna insert a column here. Okay. Now we're not done with this guy. We have to go back and now go back to the beginning, and now we have to film the opposite side of the pharynx, okay, on the other muscle. And there we go. So I'm going to delete these measurements that I already have made, and I'm going to go measure there, and then advance, reposition, measure, advance, reposition, measure, advance, reposition, measure, advance. Now here, what is important is that you only get this muscle on this side. So as long as the circle gets those muscles, the whole thing, it doesn't matter if it's like that and you're getting nothing here, but you're still getting the maximum brightness. What you don't want to do is something like this, where you're going to get more than one muscle at the time, okay? So as long as your circle is enough to capture that one muscle on that side, or that other muscle on that side, you're gonna be good. You know, I try to make them so that they're more or less the size of the muscle and not catching that other muscle over there. And so you basically go on, and you're gonna, again, now you're gonna record those measurements, copy, paste over here, now the worms have a dorsal and a ventral side. Here is the ventral side of the muscle, there's the vulva, and so what means is that we are measuring, the first set of measurements were from the dorsal side. And so we're gonna call this D for dorsal, V for ventral. It's not important that you get this right. What is important is that you keep it straight and that you always the same side, you know which one it is. It's not important because we are not comparing dorsal to ventral, but we want to keep them separate, okay? And that's important. I'll show you why in the next part. So here we go to clear here, and now we need to measure the angle of the pharynx. So we go back to the beginning, frame 1 again, and you're gonna click this tool here, which is the angle tool. We're gonna measure this angle here, right? And so I want you to go about from the pharynx to basically the first inflection point there, down the middle of the worm, so that we can measure the angle that the animal has in its body at that particular spot where we're measuring the brightness of the muscle. So this angle here corresponds to this muscle here. You see that it's angled this way, so when I press M, I'm gonna get an angle of 168 degrees. Then I forward 1 frame, and I go again, and I forward 1 frame again, and I go. Try your best to put these dots halfway between the edges of the worm, and in every one of them, you know, all 3 dots have to be about at the center of the worm. You can move this around a little bit if you want, if you're not too happy. But this is the part that is important to get right, because if you get this a little bit wrong, that's a whole lot of degrees that you're gonna get wrong, and that's gonna really impact the results. And so we get these measurements, and once you go through the movie, again, this is the super important part. They are equidistant, halfway between the top and the bottom. And one thing that I gotta tell you is that the angle that you get is always an angle between 0 and 180, which means that when this worm bends, right now it's bending this way, so you get an angle that is 150, smaller than 180. But when it starts to bend the other way, the angle is not bigger than 180 because we are no longer getting this angle, we're now getting the opposite angle. So you need to make a note at what frame in the movie the worm switch sides, right? And so the worm is still in one side there, and there is in a different side. So you gotta make that note. So we go here, copy, go here to paste, and these are the angles, okay? Copy, okay? So this is the reading of the angles, and these angles correspond to the dorsal side, not to the ventral side, okay? Except that you know that this frame, the worms were facing the opposite direction, which means we had to convert this, and we do that by subtracting the number from 360. There we go. So that's 225 rather than 135. And for these angles that are the same, I'm gonna highlight this so I don't know. This one is equals H3. Okay, so that angle doesn't change, but these angles will change, and this is the true angle that goes with this. So if we graph this maximum brightness with the true angle, we have a correlation, because the smaller the angle, the brighter the muscle. So they are inversely correlated, the one to the other. That's the measurements that you need to make from this, and I do it in 3 passes. I go first pass, I get all of the ventral or dorsal to one side, copy that, then I go back, get all the other side, and then I go back and get the angles, and I take super extra time with the angles. With the circle here, as I mentioned, is more forgiving, so as long as you don't make it too big, as long as you don't put it like that it bites into both muscles, you're gonna be okay. But the angle really matters. So spend more of your time in there. Also, when you're starting, it's okay if you just go down one side. So if you just wanna do the one side of the body and then the angles, that's fine. We're gonna get that correlation, and we can go back and get the opposite side later if you want, right? Once we have the frames, we know what frames we're going after, so we can always go back and double check the data. So hopefully that helped you. Once you're done, make sure that you let somebody know so they can turn off the machine, the light source at the end of the day. Okay, thank you.